And this is not an incubator hub. In fact, let's enter and talk about this so that people can understand before they enter the comments and talk about a model like this. Wait, don't put your comments in. First listen. So 2018 September.
So funding is approved.
And they're going to pay it in tranches.
So first disbursement came, I think, in March of the next year, because there's all the signing of contracts and bank accounts and everything. And so at the point we got the approval.
Taxation on grants?
No, because that's something else. So another stroke of genius that we had done is that we had registered the Wylde Trust, I think, in 2018 or 2017. In anticipation for something we didn't know what, but it ended up being a very useful vehicle for this project eventually.
Because they were
the model that I'd seen other people using, where you have a for-profit, and I mean even Equity has that model, Equity Foundation, Safaricom Foundation. So we registered a non-profit alongside that. It could be used for philanthropic purposes, but it means it can also accept grants.
I get it.
So again, it's just a legal model vehicle. So once the money was approved, so first we're in disbelief, because never in our wildest dreams had we thought we would ever come across
never in your wildest
something. Never in the wildest dreams had we thought that we would come across something like this. So excitement, but now also the weight sinks for, now we have to deliver the project. So because it's a physical location, you can show pictures of it in this thing. So we started to look. I mean, we literally ran across. I'd been to all new buildings and buildings in Nairobi that, because we're looking for sizable space to set it up. So looked for buildings in Upper Hill, Kilimani, Westlands. At some point I remember we had an Excel sheet with like a criteria for building. Does it meet criteria? Does it meet? So parking was important for us.
How many people are you looking at having within the space?
Within the space. So we're generally looking at, we've expanded since we started, but we're generally looking for at least 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
I think we've seen
and that could hold like how many people from your
so it started out at 50. Now we have doubled that space. Because we didn't want to start big, we wanted to start in a manageable way. But from the time we kicked off, the guys who came in just started growing, and we started adding other professional services from the ones we began with. But anyway, just backtracking back to start looking for locations. Then I think there are several where we're almost signing a lease, one in Upper Hill, that brick building. Then they said something like they didn't want us holding events, so we went to this building somewhere in Lenana Road. Didn't work out. Then eventually we landed at CMS Plaza, which is where we are right now.
And where is that?
So this is Chania Avenue, just behind Yaya Center and French School. There's like a road. So that's the road we are on, opposite Mkopa Solar offices. We are right opposite. Tall building, 14 floors.
There used to be a restaurant there. Mama, I'm talking about the wrong one. There's Pete's. There's Pete's, and then next to Pete's is the solar place.
Yes,
So you guys are
opposite
the solar place. Okay. No, the restaurant is the building before.
There's a restaurant on that one on 5th floor. So we found it, competitively recruited interior designers. Found an amazing interior designer called Clara Mwanje, Clara Sayo.
As a musician, I used to know her. She used to be in a group.
Yes.
But now she's one of the best affordable interior designers.
So she's an amazing interior designer. And the reason we selected her is because, we ended up with a top 3. I would say pricing was more or less the same, but she was the one able to articulate our brand in the physical space. In terms of capturing the African feel and everything that we really, really wanted. So she did a brilliant job at coming up with those concepts. In fact, a very interesting story about, we contract Clara, she comes, they get the drawings, and then she does the 3D renders of the space. And so when she does that, and now I get a copy of it, is when it starts to look real for, oh my God, this thing is going to come to pass. How did we end up with the name Sandbox? Let's go back a little bit. So all this time, it's Wylde Business Support Center. We didn't have the name Sandbox. But as we went along, we just kept discussing, look, this thing it's a different business model. If anything, Wylde is supposed to be under Sandbox, not Sandbox under Wylde. And if we keep it as a brand under Wylde, people will always look at the whatever it is that we are in the business support center under the brand of a consulting company.
Yes.
And that would have limitations. People don't think consulting firms are scalable. Raising funds as a consulting firm is difficult. So eventually we decided, okay, this support center, let's hive it off as a separate business.
Nice.
And this was literally about 3 months to launch that we were making this decision.
Yeah.
So once we made the decision to hive it off, we're like, okay, now we can't call it the Wylde
help of the board.
No. This is
internal.
Already, remember we had the different experts that we were putting together to come into the Sandbox.
I get it.
So in fact, after Galana Road, our whatever at Wii Plaza, our lease ran out. So we temporarily moved to a co-working space called Lattice at Applewood, just opposite Adams Arcade.
Yeah, that's it's owned by Carol.
Carol, Mbui.
Yeah.
So Carol, housed us for the period when we were working on this. So a lot of us consultants who are moving into the Sandbox, after our leases ended, would temporarily stay at Lattice as we were preparing to move into the Sandbox. So we were there with the brand people and we would always be brainstorming and we're like, no, this thing, we need to give it a cool name and stuff. So we got into a brainstorm around, okay, if we were to hive it off as a separate entity, what would we call it? And so at the time we were putting this together, there's a guy called Peter Ngunye, who has been in the space. So when I tell you this, it will now click where that name came from. Peter Ngunye used to work for Brick. BRCK.
Yeah.
So
and Brick was the phone. Was it the phone? I'm thinking of the
Brick was the internet backup thingy, and now they've gone into Wi-Fi.
In fact, even he met working at Mark Zuckerberg that time when he came.
Yes.
I remember he was at iHub.
Yeah. So Peter, at that point we were hanging around a lot together, and as we were conceptualizing this whole Sandbox thing, he was kind of in the mix. And so one day brainstorm, then the next day we all come with names, we put them on the table, and he came up with SNDBX for Sandbox. So we all look at it, all the other names that had been suggested, like this looks, pretty cool. So like Sandbox, we mulled over it, and then the brand guy looked at it immediately and like, this is it. So he took it and then he went and created the logo, and then he came back and showed us, it's like, here, does this work? So we all look at it and we fall in love with it. We're like, that's it.
And now this is it on the screen.
Yeah. So that's the Sandbox. So we went to the Sandbox logo. If you look at the Sandbox logo and the Wylde logo, you'll see a certain similarity. So that was the connection between the two. So immediately we went to Kipi and secured the Sandbox trademark.
Yeah. So it's brand. The Sandbox, not just
Sandbox. Just
Sandbox.
Sandbox. SNDBX. Okay. So without the A, without the O.
Yeah.
So we have the Sandbox, and then so we secured the trademark, secured the intellectual property around it, the copyright around the Sandbox framework. But guess who holds this copyright? It's Wylde. that held this. Because Sandbox was not a separate company. It was a company under Wylde.
Yeah.
So we secure that intellectual property, and then now the brand team and the marketing team go crazy around creating this whole new brand, looking at potential brand extensions around the whole Sandbox thing. We come back and we start brainstorming around the essence of the Sandbox thing, and we're bringing all these people together. We are Pan-African. We are about collaboration. So again, somebody suggests the village formula, and we're like, perfect. This is the village formula. As Africans, we've always been collaborative. We've always done things as a group. If you look back to almost any African community, things were done that the child belongs to the village. That's why we have the thing of it takes a village to raise a child. And so we came up with a village formula where it takes a village to raise an entrepreneur. So that was the whole brand essence behind it. And we're like, we are truly going back to our roots by going back.
That's powerful.
To bringing all these different professional services under one roof, under one village, so that you come as an entrepreneur and you're able to access different village elders with wisdom in particular areas of business, and they help you sort out that particular area. So by the time we were putting together the Sandbox concept late 2019.
But first of all, how are you deciding who we are going to pick?
So a lot of them were those guys we used to do the program with.
Oh, nice.
From 2010. A lot of them were that group.
But now you're trying to convince guys to leave
now they need to leave their offices and move. So as a result, we lost some people because they were not willing to uproot and move. So for those people, we had to find alternative people. So I go asking around, getting the same group we're with to, recommend people they may have worked with in those areas.
Yeah.
So by the time we were getting to launch, we had 19 different professional services. Everything from a startup expert to Wylde that was now offering strategy, to a legal firm, HR, marketing, sales, like the list goes on and on. Innovation, governance expert to help with your board and governance matters. So we came together, managed to convince those guys, put the concept together, agreed that once we start, so we built the Sandbox in a co-working format, and looks really, really good. Like as you can see, like people, we like really went all out in the design and in the layout and how it's.
So Clara is one who did all the interior design.
Clara did all the interior. Yeah. In fact, a very funny story. Now, when Clara gave me the renderings, remember, I now took the renders and showed my wife, this is what we are going to build at the Sandbox. Something very funny happens. She looks at it and she's like, this is what you've been trying to tell me the last 6 years. Like now it finally hit her. Because I'd been explaining to her how we have a vision to put this one-stop shop together and what. But for her, it's until she saw the visuals of how it's set up and everything, is when it finally clicked home for, hiya, this is it. So from that time, my wife has become the biggest, when
ambassador
of a Sandbox. And that's when I realized that I'm a very poor communicator of vision. I would talk about it and I would think people have gotten it. In fact, anyone who comes to the Sandbox who had been interacting with Wylde from 2012 always tells me, this is the thing you used to tell us about. So it's like we were very clear we were going to do this. It was just a matter of getting the resources.
Let me just say
get
that
to the place where people,
people, it's easier to explain to people from a perspective of what they've already seen.
Yes.
So maybe they were seeing an incubator hub.
Yes.
Or
the
village. The place where Carol's place was.
A
co-working space. Yes. Yeah. But yours is not. Yours is.
It's not a co-working
space. Like you see what you've even said. You said there's some companies or some consultants who refuse because they refuse to move into your premise.
Yes.
That contract and relationship could not happen anymore. Could continue because of the model that you have.
Yes.
An SME, like for example, if Nick here has a problem with branding, he just needs to walk in and ask, hi, I'm looking for the branding department here, or I've got whatever. Yes. And little no problem, go and see this guy.
Go see this guy. Nini,
So so let me ask just some layman questions and I'll let you continue. So these guys let's say I enter and I want branding, and do I pay at the reception or do I go and pay that person?
So what happens is